Hey team, today what's really happening in the economy? So some exciting stuff if you're into the economy like I am, and I find myself at the moment researching sort of an hour to an hour and a half of just what's happening all over the world, and I get a little bit bored about reading just, here's what's happened to house prices this week, and consumer spending's decreased and things like that. So hopefully you might learn something from these slides, and it might get you thinking about different things. And I just want to show you some of the things that I've picked up from some of the research that I've been doing. And also, as a chartered accountant, where we get to look inside businesses, it always confuses me why so many people are getting economists for keynote speaking and things like that, when there are smart people within your businesses and around you that actually have direct access to market information. And you can talk to so many people in business and find out how they're going, what they're doing. And as a chartered accountant with a number of high-performing clients, we're very lucky that we get to do that. And I just would disclaim this from the start as well, that a lot of the clients that we do deal with are growing, and they are doing well, and they have a very strong mindset. And that means that often they perform a little bit differently to how some of the other businesses are out there, but we do chase down aspirational business owners as our key target market. So I'll hide behind these slides because you don't want to keep looking at me. But why are we here? I just wanted to put together some slides where I've been having the same conversation a number of times with clients, with friends, with family, with people that are interested. And I think it's quite cool that people are, interested in what is going on at the moment. So I'll give you some insights into the actual businesses that we deal with, and some of the stuff the media is not talking about. Sometimes I think it might be a little bit hard for them to understand and whatnot. So then they're probably not going to write about it for you to then consume as well. So some of the things that I've discovered through some of the research I'm doing, and there's always something to learn. I love learning from smart people all over LinkedIn, even YouTube, and going and researching articles that can test my thinking and help me figure out what may or may not happen, but I think it's just good to keep the mind going as well. So let's talk about what's booming to start with, and I think we all know what that is, and that's house prices. You can't go anywhere without someone wanting to talk about the price of a house at the moment, it's crazy. We've got clients in construction, and they are flat stick, and especially those ones in development and things like that. They've got opportunities coming out of their ears. So you've also got something interesting happen. You've got people that are a little bit older that have got some equity, and they are starting to get that flow-on effect of, well, my mate down the road is potentially going to develop their property. We're thinking we should be doing the same thing. We might put a couple of townhouses on the spare bit of land we've got. We've got quite a bit of money. Can you help us build 8 houses on this block of land that we've just purchased? Things like that. So I think we're going to see more of that going on as FOMO really drives that. We're funny creatures, humans. We love to do what each other are doing, and we hate getting left behind. And I find myself getting caught in that trap at times as well. But we're often very quick to remind our clients that business is the ultimate vehicle that you want to be in to be driving good returns if you can get a business humming nicely. So looking at Sharesies as well, it's been really interesting to watch, and I have loved learning about Sharesies and just watching what people are doing and reading some people's commentary around the things that they're investing in. But some hard sort of data for you there. I just read yesterday that Sharesies have now had $900 million invested through their platform. The last time I looked, I think it was $700 million about September, October, and even $500 million back in June. So they are just getting more and more money flood through their platform into the share market. So 250,000 people using Sharesies, which is a fair few to be using them to invest, but good to see that Kiwis are starting to learn about that. I guess the scary thing is, are we educated enough to be doing and buying shares? Perhaps no. But how do you learn? So we'll probably touch on that later. But I guess what I would say is, you can't buy houses with no money, you can't buy shares with no money, and you can't be buying Bitcoin that's at record highs now as well with no money. So money is obviously flowing through into these assets, and often when we put a lot of money into supply, we see that money flow through to different financial assets, and that's exactly what you're seeing. You're seeing house prices go up, share market go through the roof when allegedly we're in one of the toughest economic times we've been in, whether you want to call it a recession, depression, whatever you want to call it. We are in a global retraction of GDP, and we just seem to be a little bit isolated out here in New Zealand. Maybe we didn't really get lucky, but we've dealt with the COVID side of things very well, and now we find ourselves in a very unique economy compared to some of those around the world. So I have no doubt that when a couple of those economies, I'm going to say it, shit the bed, internationally, New Zealand will, in terms of our stock market, it will freak out and it'll do the same thing as well. So that might be, and that's going to be interesting to see how many people go, wow, I don't want to be investing in shares anymore. I don't want to be, buying through Sharesies and using my KiwiSaver, or buying, contributing to my KiwiSaver and things like that. I don't think that's going to happen at scale though, because I think people have just got too caught up in the excitement of all of this stuff and seeing some of these quick returns, and we all know where shortcuts sort of lead us to. So yeah, very, very interesting time to watch how much money is actually changing hands and moving into these different areas. So are we graduating or progressing as people into the things that we invest in? Part of me says yes, because so many people are going into the share market and using KiwiSaver as well. But the other part of me goes, well, there's a huge obsession for property still, and we're watching that play out right now. So it's going to be very, very interesting to watch. But that's very, very new, Sharesies, realistically, in the scale of time. So people have obviously wanted it, and now that they're educated, they are happy to put their money into the share market. So just in terms of looking at the numbers, Xero, I guess they've done very well themselves in terms of their share price. They've given a real speed up of that real-time data, and I think that's really helped with what's happened in this recession, where for one of the first times in a huge downturn, looking back through the latest ones or the most recent ones, we've got real-time data, and we can be looking at data every day going, how are we performing? What do we need to change? Can we cut costs? And, that's given people a huge ability to be agile and to make decision-making faster than perhaps in some of these prior downturns in the economy and things like that, because, the data can be there just about daily if you want to use that data and make predictions and decisions from it. So huge advantage for us this time compared to other downturns in the economy. Now, going to be completely honest, a lot of our clients are seeing record years of turnover and record years of profit. So, considering we should be struggling, I've had a number of conversations with clients who are looking at us and looking at each other going, we're doing really well and we're really, really busy and we've got a lot of work coming up, and they're confused almost. And so I think the hype around, what was going to happen in the economy sort of been shaken off, and people are spending and people are out there doing things. So like I say, I guess our economy is a little bit unique to some of the others around the world, but things are still moving and things are happening. So, especially in that construction space where you start to see margin being made at every single piece of that supply chain, people are still managing to make a dollar. So money's flowing through it nicely. And I think, if I'm completely honest, I think that construction space is sort of the space that you do want to be in if you do have a well-oiled business, and the money continues to flow through there because everybody just seems to be pretty keen to continue to build and to build extra and all these types of things. So that's going to be very interesting to watch. But like I said at the start, a little bit of a disclaimer, a lot of our clients are aspirational, they're high performing, they are in growth mode, and they are seeking more. They're not sort of at that end of the business life cycle stage or sitting dormant, things like that. They're pretty hungry. So we probably don't have a true cross section of all businesses in New Zealand, but we definitely touch every industry, and all those clients are doing well, and we're hearing that from a lot of businesses. And if you go reading and researching, you'll see that a lot of people are too. So I think perhaps maybe I'll make a bold call. We might have got the wage subsidy a little bit wrong. It might have been a little bit too easy, but should people have to repay it? Who knows? I don't want to weigh in on that. But I think, the way it worked, a lot of money got out into a lot of hands very, very quickly, and that's what was wanted. And so this is not political at all. This is just what happens when you do that and get money out to people so quickly. So you're always going to have differences of opinion of how that should have been done. But I guess for some of those businesses, I think they'll even tell you themselves, like, hey, that saved our business, or that was, it was great. And yeah, things are back to normal for them, or even bigger and better. So very, very interesting one. And I think probably will spark quite a few arguments over time. But hey, that's the rules that were put up, and everybody was entitled to claim it that was eligible for it, and so that's what people did. So I don't think we can point the finger too much, given that we didn't know what the framework was going to look like coming out of the lockdowns and things like that. But obviously, still a high level of uncertainty. We don't know, are some of those other economies going to tank, and that means that ours just follows because, you know, they sneeze and we catch a cold, that sort of thing. Do we go back into another lockdown? What does the world look like? I personally, a few opinions are people will travel less. It'll be more expensive to travel, and people will obviously try and have a more blended life between working from home and those types of things, especially if your business embraces the internet, which I guess by 2021 we probably should be, but for some businesses, manufacturing and things, that may not be as possible. But I do think that you know, our quality of life should be improved by people wanting to embrace technology. So hopefully that is what happens. So yeah, all in all, for Inside Clients, businesses doing really, really well, and exciting to see, and giving people a fair bit of confidence. And I think, you know, as well, with the housing market doing so well, it gives people a level of confidence as well to go out there and spend and do other things and build the deck and whatnot. So that all flows through and continues money going through the economy. Right. This is one of my favorite sayings. When I was taught this, I can't remember who taught me this, but they say, money exchanges hands when value exceeds price. Now, I use that all the time for myself. If we get turned down from, you know, a client, or I can't sell something, the first thing I think of is, you haven't demonstrated enough value. That is your fault, Luke. You have not demonstrated enough value. So I think this has been great for me to learn to understand a couple of different things. And one is that, you know, exactly what I was just explaining, that I can be then hard on myself and go, I need to deliver more value, or this thing just isn't valuable enough for what I'm trying to price it at. And then the other part of that is that, you know, people will spend money on the things that they find valuable. Now, I've got an example there, and this is a true example of a friend of mine. They can earn anywhere from $600 to $1,000. Now, at the end of that week, they do not have any money left over. So no matter if they earn 600, 1,000, sometimes $1,200, they will still end up with $0. Now, why does that happen? You know, you could say, well, it's education, but it comes back to this definition, is that that person is exchanging their money for the value that they're getting. So that might be some new headphones, it might be, you know, more entertainment, it might be travel, it might be an extra meal out, but they exchange their money because they're getting value in return for what they are paying for with that money. So that's, I guess, what we need to figure out to help people save more and do those types of things. And obviously KiwiSaver's been great for that, but I think it's very important to remember that money will exchange hands when value exceeds price. So if people have a perceived value in something, they will go and pay for it, and they will hand that money over. So that is where, you know, often I kind of think with helicopter money and things like that, and just handing money out, that's all good and well, but eventually that person will then go and exchange that money for something that they find valuable. And perhaps there's nothing wrong with that, and I'm not, you know, again, staying away from the political side of it, but you can see how money ends up back in the hands of the people that can provide more value and add more value to the marketplace. And that is often what businesses do, especially ones that are competing with each other. The one that can provide more value ends up winning in the long run. So I think it's just like a really quick definition, or a quick one-liner that really gets you thinking about a number of different things. So, you know, hopefully we can educate people as we go to hold back some of their incomes and actually invest with that, or save. You could make the argument at the moment, why would you want to save if interest rates are so low? And that's part of what we're seeing people do, is take their money out of the bank and put it into financial assets that are going to get them a return. So just something I thought I'd share with you that I found really, really interesting learning about and thinking about. Love to know your thoughts on that. I often talk to clients about this, and I've written about it previously as well, that debt is our drug of choice versus productivity, and then our productivity often suffers. So at the moment, for instance, if you're in business, you can, and you qualify, you can basically apply for a $10,000 interest-free loan plus $1,800 per employee, up to $100,000. So you can get $100,000 of free money as such. It's not costing you anything to have that money. Of course, you have to pay it back. It is a loan, but debt has become very, very cheap. And in my opinion, I don't think that continuing to throw debt at a problem is a long-term solution. And if you research people, you know, internationally, you can find a lot more about this. And this is the sort of thing you won't see getting spoken about in our mainstream media here. And, you know, it's Well, I guess you will in some places, but it's not a heavy conversation. I think we've gotten so used to using debt to solve everything that we just carry on with it, and it's what everyone expects to do. Can't have that. Get some debt and you can get it. And I don't know where that's going to lead us, but researching history, well, it sounds like it's not usually the best outcome for what ends up happening. So yeah, that's going to be very interesting to see where we get to with that. And internationally, I think we've got huge levels of debt, and it was something I raised with my parents right at the start of lockdown, and they were sort of saying, mate, just chill out, we've been there before, it's fine. And I'm like, guys, like this, we've just put $10,000 of debt on every single Kiwi on their head. Do you think that's a problem? They're like, well, it's not a problem, but it's, it is a bit, it's a bit scary. I'm like, yeah, like it is scary to me, but maybe I just think about those things too much. But I do find it really, really interesting. But really, we are solving a lot of problems with debt and just throwing more money at problems. So, hey, if we didn't throw so much debt at some of these things, including wage subsidies and interest-free loans and things, would that money then be flowing back into the housing market and the share market? Who knows? There's always going to be an argument for both ways. But I guess one of my main concerns for me personally is I love to help people, and I love trying to add value and educate and help where I can. And I do think that we're going to see a number of people left behind, and that's going to be really, really sad to watch and look back at, and go, wow, they were completely oblivious and they had no idea that was happening. Meanwhile, we were educated and we knew that was going to happen. So I think if you ask someone that has a low income and they want to buy a house and things, they're already feeling like they're getting left behind. So via flooding more money into the economy and having more debt and using that as a focus, then things are going to get out of reach for people, and that is going to be sad. But I do think that is inevitable. In 10 years' time, we're going to look back, and I think we're going to be in a worse place of inequality. And I think internationally, we're at some record levels of wealth gaps since the 1930s. So again, something you're probably not going to read too much about in our New Zealand media, because maybe we think we don't need to worry about that yet, or our time is further away. But unless we can educate people, then I think we are going to have these problems. And I think we're already seeing a lot of poverty in the economy and the community and things. And I think you're always going to have that stuff, but what can we do to improve the people's lives that are around us? Can we all do something individually? I think we all know the answer is yes to that, but can we do something collectively? So for me, I think KiwiSaver has been a great introduction of something that's then helped people understanding that saving's important, and hopefully preparing for their future retirement and savings down the road, and also just learning about saving. So off on a bit of a tangent there, but yeah, debt is definitely our drug of choice, and it seems it's just, we just keep pumping it into our arm and don't even think there's any consequences. But I'm sure our time will come where we have to reset how we think about that stuff. And just lastly on that, we even had a couple of clients who didn't take the wage subsidy and said, no, we're going to look inward and we're going to find a way to become more productive in our business, and therefore basically cover some of our costs in a different way, or decrease them and do things differently and make ourselves more efficient, and therefore we won't need that wage subsidy. So they were able to pull it off, and bloody awesome to see. So I think those types of people should be celebrated across New Zealand, because effectively they haven't then cost the entire tax paying base via taking that wage subsidy into the future. So something for you to ponder too. Might be a bit of a shock for some, that some people voluntarily chose not to take a wage subsidy, which is pretty awesome of them. Right, interesting things to run through. I think when you think about, I kind of think maybe we do have a US stock market crash coming at some stage, and then I think our New Zealand economy, our New Zealand stock market will react and mirror it and freak out. But then I think about the fact that we've got a lot of people, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people putting into KiwiSaver every single week. There is money flooding into different areas of the market via their KiwiSaver. And that's the first sort of time I've been here at this scale. So going to be interesting to see what people do if a big crash does come. And obviously at the start of lockdown, we saw, once COVID was sort of announced, we saw, I think, $1.4 billion of money liquidized into losses as people, changed their KiwiSaver and moved to cash and went conservative, and then they've missed the upswing, and they may perhaps not have even needed that money for 40 years, but they just saw things going down, and someone next to them said, mate, you've got to get out of your KiwiSaver. And so they were doing that. And, those things do lead to huge problems. They're small decisions that can have big, big impact. So, it's very interesting now where we are with so much money flooding into our stock market every single week. And then you add on things like Sharesies and younger people being more interested in that stuff and perhaps thinking housing is out of reach, and they are saving via the share market. So, is that a ticking time bomb? I guess it's always a ticking time bomb, right? And we saw that right at the start of lockdown. But, do we go there and then do we see, tiny increases in the market rather than these big ones that we've been seeing? I know some of the stocks that I've have gone up 30% from when I bought them. And I look at that and know, I can't get 30% better performance out of myself in those small time frames. Is this sustainable? So, it's a very interesting one to watch coming out. But I guess I don't think we can really grow by just creating money and hoping that it's going to turn into more money for us. And I always say, you can't teach work ethic. And I think if we can get people to understand the importance of work and productivity and doing those things, then we're going to have a few different ways to be able to solve some of the problems that we're going to have. But I saw people talking in the market about how we've got some of the highest. Well, we've never had more money in banks and lower interest rates, which doesn't make sense when you think about it. Why is there so much money in the bank when we've got no one's earning any interest? So, that money, as we've already spoken about, is starting to flow into different areas of the market, especially as people get FOMO and chase a better return. And, I often see as well, people talk about, well, we don't really have any inflation, and hey, that's cool, and that's what the Reserve Bank need to control. But, you tell that to somebody that all of a sudden needs an extra $50,000, as part of their deposit for their house that they necessarily didn't need a year ago. So I don't know whether we maybe need to redefine what inflation is, but given so many people want to buy a home, I guess it's kind of important to know how much you're going to need. So I think I've got a slide on who don't you want to be. And this will be confronting for some and probably seem a little bit unfair, but touching on that example, if you're an employee and you're saving for your first home and all of a sudden house prices have shot up by 10% and you're saying, well, actually now I need 550,000, not 500,000, you're probably at the moment sitting in a job where you're saying, hey, we're freezing pay rises, we're freezing hiring, we're a bit concerned about the future, we can't give you a pay rise, and even if you are getting one, it's probably not major. So that means that you're disadvantaged compared to someone that's in business that can go, right, I can go and add more value into the market and exchange that for money coming back to me, and therefore I can control the fact that house prices are going up because I can go and earn more money and it still becomes affordable to me. So I know some people won't like that comparison, but that is the reality of a business owner and someone that's really in control of their own income versus someone that's not in control of their income. I guess that's what I'm trying to show you there, is that those people that are in control, you should be very, very grateful. Right now, you're in a very good position to be able to weather a storm in any recession. And that is a huge benefit to you. And often business owners will get trapped in their own bubbles of talking to other business owners and forgetting the fact that there are people that haven't had a pay rise for years. And things are becoming more unattainable for them. So, if you're not haven't been thinking about that, then maybe just take a bit of time to reflect on whether you can control your own income and how you can potentially do that, because it can teach you a lot as you go through your life. So, right, I've just said there as well, you're going backwards if you have cash. And what I mean is that if you're sitting on cash, and house prices are going up and also the stock market's going up and you haven't been a part of that ride, your cash is effectively, hasn't grown like those other two financial assets. So whether they end up crashing, who really knows? Probably not. But your cash is staying the same, if not stagnant, and also getting impacted via inflation, of which is pretty minimal. So just something for you to think about there as well. Right, what have I forgotten? What happens next? Look, I'm purely guessing here, and these are purely opinions, of course, this whole thing. But it is a very exciting time if if you are interested in the economy and how things are working all over the world now. Like I said at the start, I spend a lot of time researching different economies and where things are going and what some of the investors are doing. And I think what I would say, I don't want to make any bold predictions, but I'm sort of certainly watching with intrigue how this next couple of years plays out. And I think you don't want to bury your head in the sand, and you do want to stay attentive to the things that are happening out there, because we are in completely a new age and a new time. And if you can find ways to control the 6 inches around you, I think if that's the saying, then spend some time doing it, and really spend some time looking at how you want 2021 to play out and what control you can put back into your life. And I think that's going to be critical for so many people, so that you don't end up with that victim mentality and that victim mindset. And it's going to be every man for themselves if things start getting tough for us out there. But I do think that we're in a pretty solid place in New Zealand. Obviously, we're in a very solid place compared to some of the other countries, and our government's still prepared to pour more debt at some of these things and really support people. So I think we've got a long way to go before we're really, really in trouble. But going back to the start, I think if we're watching house prices soar and these types of things, and for the first time, people saying the government needs to intervene here and stop, and there is going to be a little bit of disagreement between people, I would encourage you to not get too bogged down in it. Focus on the things that you can control. Focus on what makes you happy. Focus on what you can be grateful for, and find ways to look after yourself, because there is nothing worse than going down massive rabbit holes and getting to the end of them going, I'm buggered. What am I doing with my life? I'm out of control. So look after yourselves. Hopefully you found that helpful. I've enjoyed putting that together. I've probably missed a whole heap of things that I did want to talk about. But after 26 minutes of talking directly to a screen, I should probably wrap it up. We'll see you on the next one.